Thanks for taking the time to watch this. I'll try to do a little play-by-play. Starting the micro drawing here, I am using a Copic multiliner 0.03 black pen. And I'm just laying things in, starting with Hobbes's head. Those are his ears, actually, viewing it from the side here. My son was doing a good job of being the cameraman. It's just hard to get close enough when your fingers are blocking the camera most of the time. You can't see my eyes, but I'm very close to the paper and continuing to work on Hobbes's forehead there. And basically, I'm just on this picture, I end up working from top to bottom and then adding the color. In the background there, you can see on the table the Copic sketch markers. I'll get to those later. They actually have a broad tip and a fine tip. And of course, I end up using the fine tip on this because it doesn't take much to put too much ink down and it bleeds into the paper. And then it basically wrecks the drawing because one drop of ink on this little picture would pretty much engulf it. So if you look closely, Hobbes's head is nearing completion. And I'm starting to work in Calvin's head. Hobbes is, well, they're hugging each other, I suppose. So the heads kind of come together there. And I'm just kind of setting things in. Due to the small nature, I'm not really doing a pencil underdrawing at all. I'm just using that Copic multiliner ink pen. So I'll just continue to keep working down this, adding to Calvin's hair right there, basically. Even myself, when I'm watching this after the fact, it's hard to always see if I'm actually doing anything. But then after enough time passes, you can see that I've moved on it. And I always try to put like a Q-tip or something else that everybody's familiar with as a reference. You know, this picture, the actual drawing, if you look at your pinky fingernail, the picture is smaller than that. So I guess depending on how big your pinky fingernail would be. So there I'm working on Hobbes's arm that's coming down, wrapping around Calvin. Adding more details to Calvin's head. I was really trying to keep things still or in place for this video. A lot of times I'll rotate the paper around just to get at a different angle, especially when I'm using the marker. Later on in this video, I do use the marker and rotate the paper. We managed to keep it on the screen. There I'm working on Hobbes's back coming down. And right in there, it's where Hobbes's white paw is wrapping around Calvin. So getting some of that detail worked in there. And you can see a little bit of Calvin's red shirt underneath Hobbes's arm. So work that in there too. And right now I'm working on Hobbes's the bottom of his feet. It's got kind of a black pad, bigger one, and then 3 smaller pads on the bottom of his feet. Pretty soon here I'll move on to adding his tail. There's the black tip of his tail. And then I needed to add the stripes to Calvin. And I did it, Calvin's shirt, yes, and then Hobbes's body. So we're getting nearer the point of actually coloring it. I'm adding those stripes. Also just kind of taking a look at it overall to see we've got all the details in there. I'm not sure if the background noise comes through. It's one of my sons playing Fortnite, so I apologize if you can hear that. So there, it's pretty much drawn. There's my yellow fine tip end of the Copic sketch marker. That is Calvin's hair. So I'm just kind of touching that in there, being very careful not to let it bleed because it'll bleed over the black lines. Thankfully, the black Copic multi-liner pen lines don't bleed. The markers will kind of blend together. I believe they're alcohol-based. But on a drawing this small, I'm pretty much keeping the colors to themselves. So there, I'm rotating it just so I can get a little different angle at it. And that was pretty much adding little red here. I'm trying to add it. Oh boy, I think that was on Calvin's shoe and then his shirt. Add a little red there. It looks like I'm touching it multiple times, but I'm just trying to get it close enough so I can just barely tap it. Then here coming back with the orange to go over Hobbes's body. Hitting the top of his head, near the ears. And getting kind of along his back and his legs down there. I'll have to get his tail too. The tail ended up being pretty narrow, so I had to be careful adding just a little bit of the marker as I went on that. We're getting pretty close to the end here, so hopefully we'll be able to see that finishing up. There, I'm rotating it a little bit to get that tail. And pretty much done. That is actually a colorless blender. What it does is blends color, but it also helps me take away. I actually went out of bounds a little bit on the tail, so it kind of acts as an eraser because it kind of dissolves the marker a little bit. Then here I'm putting on the date and my initials MJH to finish it off. And there it is finished. I will put the Q-tip next to it so you can see the actual size of it compared to the Q-tip. Thanks again for watching, and please subscribe to my channel.